Let us go to our first guest of the day. That was a lot of fun. We welcome in former UFC bantamweight champion, my colleague over at Fox Sports, the bearded one. I like it, Dominick. Dominick Cruz joining us. How are you? Oh, I don't hear Dominick. Just 1 second, guys. Is his mic on? No? 1 second. Gentlemen? We'll get you in a second. I promise, Dominick. It's great to see your face. Okay. We're just going to fix this in a second. Dominick Cruz, wanted to have him on to, of course, talk about what happened on Saturday, but also to look ahead to next Saturday, UFC 183, Nick Diaz, Anderson Silva. It's a very interesting time in the UFC, also a very interesting time in his division. It was just announced last week that Rafael Sunsao will meet Uriah Faber. That will be taking place in March in Brazil. And, of course, it was also announced recently that TJ Dillashaw will meet Renan Barão for the UFC bantamweight title on April 25th in Montreal. That is Barão Dillashaw 2.5, because, of course, they were supposed to fight at UFC 177, and, well, we all know what happened there. Barão missed weight. We saw Joe Soto fight TJ Dillashaw. How are we looking, gents? Sorry about the delay, Dominick, but it's great to see you drinking that coffee. You look fantastic. Okay. Should we just go to the phone? Yeah, let's please go to the phone. Maybe we'll just keep you up on the screen, and we'll call your cell phone right now. All right, Dominick? I think the blizzard has gone to us. There he is with his phone. We'll get him in a second. After Dominick, we're going to be talking to Talis Ladies, another guy who has really turned around his career. You got to love stories like that. Guys going out, getting cut, and not giving up on their dream, fighting their way back, and then doing great things on the biggest stage possible. Eric, are you calling Dominick? All right, I see him talking on the phone right now. Dominick, are you there?
What's going on, man?
Hey, it's great to see you. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. We're in the midst of a blizzard here, so perhaps the weather is affecting us. But if you could just turn down the volume on your computer, because I think we're getting some feedback there.
There you go. Is that better?
Okay, cool. Yes, that is perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. First things first, before we get into all the analyst stuff, let's put the fighter hat on for a second. I know you underwent surgery last week. How did it go?
Went well. I've obviously done this more times than I'd like, but I've become pretty used to the sequence of events that take place. Right now, I'm in a machine that kind of bends my leg, and I get to move it 10 degrees every day. And I'm on 80 degrees today. I get to go to 90 degrees tomorrow. Then I go see the doctor on Thursday, and then rehab starts. So I'm right on track. Every surgery was very successful, and I'm feeling absolutely optimistic.
That is great. Great to hear. Did you go to the doctor in L.A. that GSP went to, Conor McGregor went to, or do you have your own guy?
I don't know who Conor McGregor went to. I know GSP went to a guy named Alatrash, and that's exactly who I went to. The first time I went with a different doctor. This time I used the chief of staff over there, the head doctor of the entire clinic. The guy's a beast. He knows everything, and I trust what he does. And then now for this surgery, something that I did for my own well-being was I made it so that my physical therapist, my doctor, and every physical therapist I have now are all talking, all in communication, and all on the same page. That was something that never took place in my first two surgeries. And that, in my opinion, is one of the hardest things to do, because doctors separate themselves so much from recovery that it just becomes you and the therapist. But I was able to get my therapist, Gavin McMillan, in there with Alatrash to watch the surgery.
Wow.
They're on the same page with what I need to be doing to get back in there. And everybody's been very helpful in making sure that this surgery is completely successful at the highest level the very first time around, instead of it failing like the first time. And I've definitely made sure that everything was, all my I's were dotted and my T's are crossed on this surgery to get back in there as soon as possible.
I saw you, it was, I think, UFC 181, I believe. Was it 181? No, it was 182. It was DC Jones, right? When you were in Las Vegas working for Fox, and I was just blown away by your demeanor. I mean, of course, you were going through a lot, but you're so positive and you're in such great spirits. And I see you right now after the surgery, and I saw you tweeting about it and all that. I mean, you hate to compare one, injury to the next, but do you feel like those situations helped you deal with this better? I mean, were you not this way the other times? You're more of a veteran at this stuff, and that's allowing you to put on a happy face and just move forward?
The truth is this, Ariel, and I said it. I don't know if anybody listened to my interviews or actually heard the words that I was saying. I try to say exactly how I am and where I'm at and be real with it every time I talk. And something I said in all my interviews in the past were how much I found myself over that time where I was just sitting idle and had nothing to do. I literally had to find out who I am and who I was outside of fighting. I legitimately had to rebuild my persona because all I knew of myself up to that point, I was young when I first hurt my knee. I was only 26, and I had 4 world titles, and that's all I knew of myself was being a world champion and becoming the best fighter on the earth. That's all I wanted. That's the only thing I saw for myself. When I blew my knee out, it completely derailed any of my goals, any of the things that I chose that I wanted to do for myself, any of my future that I saw. It kind of just got thrown in a dumpster in a sense because I was so hurt and I knew I was out for so long. Dealing with that kind of depression, dealing with that kind of, low, it really taught me how to deal with ultimate lows and what I need to do to get through it. And 100% going through those first 2 surgeries that I've gone through has absolutely equipped me for this third one and given me a different mindset as to what I need to do to get through it strategically and perfectly to come back just as strong as I did before.
It's amazing. Did they give you a timeline? Is it going to be your typical, 11 or so months or perhaps shorter, longer? I mean, do you have any kind of timeline?
I'm looking probably about 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah, a typical ACL surgery is 6 to 9 months minimum. And, I'm just going to say 9 months just because that's what the doctors say. That can be later or that can be a little bit sooner. There's no way that it'll be any faster than 6 months, legitimately, because the blood flow that needs to be reassembled in that tendon, being my ACL, it takes a minimum of 6 months for it to be at its maximum blood supply going to that tendon so that it's at full strength.
Wow.
And at 6 months it will be there, and then the training starts. Building the muscle back, getting the atrophy back to full form to where it's not a little skinny peg leg anymore. It's a regular leg that I can do some damage with. You
know what my theory is? I think you become a better fighter because now you have 2 bionic knees. I mean, now no one can stop you, right?
Yeah, that's a nice thought, Ariel. I wish it really worked that way in this world. But I will say this. I basically do have 2 brand new knees, and people might not look at it that way. I see the tweets and stuff. It's hilarious to me because I've gone through this so much. I'm ready for the Dominick's done. His knees are like paper. He's never going to make it. Hang up your gloves. What's shocking to me is when I get tweets from people that tell me, what's the point, Dominick? I think it's time to hang him up. You can't do it. It's like, why do people, it shocks me how people will go out of their way to tweet me how I can't do something. It's horrible. That shocks me more than anything. It doesn't bother me. It's just like people are literally going out of their way who don't know me on a personal level to go onto their Twitter account and tell me, you can't do it. Your knees are too thin. You won't be able to. You won't be back. It's like, you really needed to do that for yourself to feel better for your day-to-day guy?
It's disgusting.
That's how I feel when I see that stuff.
What do you do? Do you block them or you laugh? What do you do?
I laugh. Depending on the how deep they go into it, I laugh. Usually if it's too negative, if it's one negative thing, I'll usually just block them because even if they follow me, I don't want negative words spoken to me. I don't have room for that. I got too much to do and too big of a mountain to climb to have somebody telling me every step of the way that I can't do something. So I just block them. That's a beautiful thing of Twitter.
Yes, it is a beautiful thing, and I do it quite often myself. All right, let's take off the fighter hat now, and again, wish you the very best. And I'm blown away by how you handle all of this. It's really commendable, and I think a lot of people should look to you when dealing with situations like this as athletes, how to move forward. You do a fantastic job of that. So, my utmost respect to you on all of this. You were watching on Saturday. I know you were tweeting about it. A tough night
Yeah.
for your team. In fact, I saw your head coach Eric Del Fiero at the airport Sunday morning. He was obviously very down. It's a long trip to make from Chula Vista, California, all the way to Sweden and have the night go that way. Let's talk about Phil Davis first. Did you think he did enough to win that fight?
I thought he looked like Phil Davis. I thought he went out there, pushed the takedowns when he needed to, looked to throw some big strikes and land, but he looked like Phil. And we knew that Bader was going to be a tough test because the wrestling was going to kind of nullify everything. But in my opinion, Phil did do enough to win that fight. But that's here, nor there anymore. The decision has been made, and nobody can overturn it or change it. In my opinion, the difference in that fight was, 10 shots to nothing. Now, regardless of whether Bader stuffed the shots or not, this isn't a wrestling match, but wrestling rules do kind of have to be a little added to an MMA match. And if anybody in wrestling shoots 10 plus shots and the other guy shoots 0, that's an automatic stall call and points are awarded to the other person,
Mm-hmm.
It's just so much. Phil was putting forth so much offense, so much energy, throwing a lot of punches at the same time. I think that Bader landed more of the effective boxing strikes, but I think Phil kept a higher offensive pace and also landed a takedown. And, I think he did enough to win, but it doesn't matter anymore.
When you say it looked like Phil Davis, I think that's a very interesting thing to hear from you, because the consensus seems to be that he hasn't evolved enough. Like, you know what you're going to get from him. You look at a guy like Alexander Gustafsson, how he was before he went to Alliance and afterwards, totally different fighter. What he does on his feet, his take down the fence, his takedowns as well. In your opinion, is Phil doing enough to evolve as a fighter, or have we seen his ceiling at this point?
I think Phil is evolving. I think that people are watching the wrong things that Phil's evolving at. People kind of don't give Phil credit for the things that he's actually evolving at. And what I mean by that is striking defense is a huge thing. It's very important. It's actually something that's very underseen in mixed martial arts, in my opinion. Is good striking defense. Phil has some of the best striking defense in the division. He hardly gets hit. He takes very little damage, and he knows how to wrestle and shoot at the right times. So what Phil is evolving at is actually his striking defense, not taking damage. And the reason why people don't give it a lot of credit is because his offense does need to evolve a little bit more. The problem, in my opinion, from watching on the outside looking in with Phil's fights, is the fact that he doesn't make people respect his offense quite enough. So guys are able to just stock because he doesn't quite just sit down on some of those big punches that he absolutely could. Phil's still evolving in that sense with his offensive output. And I do believe 100% that it will come to him. It's just, he really hasn't been in the sport this long. Phil was forced to go from a high-level wrestler straight into the highest level of the sport, almost competing for the title right away after he's been in the sport maybe 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the sport 11 plus years, and that gives me a lot of time for adjustments. Phil, when you do what Phil did, where you come from a high-level wrestling and you go straight in against the best fighters in the world, it makes your defense very good, and it makes you learn how to not be finished, and then the offensive part and the finishes, those come later, generally speaking. And that's something I think Phil is going to continue to piece together in his offense with his time in this sport, and he's going to be hard to deal with.
Would you like to see him be more aggressive, or does that, as far as a striker is concerned, or does that all come together with what you were just talking about?
It does all come together with what I was just talking about, Ariel, and I would like to see Phil be a little bit more aggressive with his strikes. And what I mean by that is you have to, in a fight, let's say Phil's goal was just to get a takedown. Let's just say that. If you're fighting somebody and you know you want that takedown, the first step to getting that takedown is you have to force your opponent to have some respect for your striking. The fight starts on your feet, throwing punches. So if that guy doesn't respect any of your power, doesn't respect your ability to possibly hurt him, cut him, or finish him with strikes, then it's a lot easier to stuff the takedowns if you're not worried about the punches doing damage. Now, if you really hurt somebody striking, you're hitting with long combinations, you tag their legs up, you cut them, you really hurt them and gain their respect early in that round. Now they have to focus on your striking, and they can't think about only your wrestling shots coming at you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So Phil somewhat, in my opinion, really needs to sit down on some of these punches offensively. He really needs to piece together some longer combination striking, really make it to where he gets completely comfortable in the stand-up realm to where he doesn't even need a takedown. And then when he needs that takedown, it will be there because he threatened and gained the respect of the striking so much.
Great insight. And more to your points, according to our resident statistician, Michael Carroll of Fight Metric, Phil Davis avoided 72.3% of opponents' significant strike attempts. And that's the highest in light heavyweight history. So that's
my point.
Yeah.
And his defense that's something that fans, people at home aren't going to see. They're just going to see he's running. That's incorrect. Phil is moving his body very strategically at the right angle, moving away from the power at the right time, moving away from the feints at the right time. There's very fine tuning things that he's doing in there to not get hit with 70% of the strikes thrown at him. That's a big, hard thing to do when you're trapped in a cage with a giant individual like Bader, Glover Teixeira, or anybody else for that matter.
What'd you make of the stoppage in the Dan Henderson-Gegard Musasi fight? Was it the right call in your opinion?
I think that it could have gone longer, but if you look at the position that the ref actually jumped in, that's a position where if Gegard Musasi didn't get stopped, he was in such a dominant position. He was basically knee on belly with his left knee crossed over the bottom arm of Henderson, which means he was trapped. He was eating at least 3 or 4 more super tough, hard punches from Musasi before he got up from that cage and was able to threaten a takedown at all, and he was already rocked. So in my opinion, if the ref wouldn't have jumped in, Henderson wouldn't have been able to even put Musasi on his back at the very end of the round the way he did. He would have just eaten a bunch of punches and been out a lot dirtier than he was. So I think the ref did make a good stoppage in that.
Would you like to see Dan Henderson continue fighting?
I love watching Dan Henderson fighting. I think that it would be great to have him around because being a fighter myself and having people say the things that they've said to me, I understand where Henderson's at in the sense that people are telling him maybe you should stop, you're not looking as good as you used to, this and that. I think Dan Henderson can still beat anybody in the top 20 of the division on any given day. Maybe don't put him against the top 10 guys. I think this guy loves to fight. I think it's in his heart and his soul and his mind that that's what he loves to do. It's what he enjoys. Why would you deprive somebody of that if that's what they enjoy doing and you're healthy enough to do it? That's Dan Henderson's choice, and I think on any given time he can still take out, anybody in the top 20. Not necessarily, maybe he's not in the top 5 guys anymore, maybe even not the top 15, possibly, I don't know. But put him against the top 20 guy and see how he does, and then go from there.
Let's talk about the big shocker, Rumble Johnson coming to Sweden, finishing Gustafsson in the first round. Some major shots Gustafsson took, especially later on. What did you think Gustafsson did wrong in that fight? What do you think he should have done and didn't do in that fight?
That's a hard fight. That's one of those first-round knockout things.
Yeah.
When you're 205 pounds and a guy hits you, you go down or you don't. That's a game of everybody in a fight gets punched. Every single person in a fight gets punched. And I tell this to all the guys that I coach. I say, this is a game of numbers. You never are 100% going to go in there and win. But I tell my guys this all the time, all you can do is bring down the chances of you getting finished, hurt, or losing. All you can do is make it like 30-60 and give yourself the 60% chance and your opponent the 30% chance of winning. And the way you do that is make sure you're in top shape, you never get tired, your defense is good, you're hard to finish, you're durable, and you move your feet a lot. There's all these things that make it harder for you to finish that. Mostly cardio brings your percentages and your chances up. Alexander Gustafsson was in top shape. He was ready for this fight. He got caught in the first round against Rumble, who hits like a train. He threw a push kick up the middle, and when you throw that push kick up in the middle, the only thing I don't like about it is when your foot comes down, your head always comes back down on the center line. It doesn't matter what you do. When your foot comes up the middle and you bring the foot down, not only are you stationary, but your head has to come down on the center line, and that allows counters. And that's what happened with Alex. He threw a push kick up the middle, which is actually a very effective kick for him, and it works very often, but it kept him stationary for just long enough for Rumble to catch the foot and throw a power overhand right and clip him. He got caught. He tried to tough it out. Couldn't do it. Anthony kept the pressure because it was so early and wasn't tired enough, and he was able to get the finish. I think if they fought best out of 3, I still take Alex. I really do. But I think that I do think that Rumble is a beast, and he's hard to deal with, and I give him nothing but respect for the win because he's earned every step forward he's taken. He didn't get no easy ride up to the top. He fought Phil Davis and Alexander Gustafsson, and that's after a bunch of his own trials and tribulations before those issues. So my hat is off to that guy, man. He's shown a lot of composure, a lot of mental strength, and a lot of positivity, actually, with all the circumstances that have been run by him.
Reminds me a lot of you. Do you give him a shot against John Jones?
I give him a good shot against John Jones, I do. The reason is he's so powerful that I think that he has a good case with moving forward and being able to withstand some of the striking power of Jones. You know, you watch the guys that Jones fights, and he keeps them so far out, and he's so rangy, and he does damage with those punches. Guys can't come forward. I think Rumble is powerful enough that John Jones has to respect the punches, similar to what I was explaining Phil needed to do early in this fight with Rumble, and everybody else, and Bader also. Rumble has to go in there and force John Jones to respect him immediately. And as long as he does that in the first, second rounds, I think he has a good fight coming up. And as fans, we've got a super fight coming.
Let me ask you 3 quick predictions, and then we'll let you go. And we really appreciate the time. I'm sure your hand is a little tired holding the phone, so thanks a lot for that. We're making you work here. Anderson Silva, Nick Diaz this Saturday, Las Vegas, UFC 183. Who's your pick?
I'm going with Anderson Silva.
Okay.
And the reason I'm going with Silva is he has more tools. He's got kicks, elbows, knees. He's just as fluent on the ground as Diaz, from what we've seen for the most part, or maybe not as fluent, but at least as offensive on the ground. And that kind of makes it a good matchup for Diaz and Silva both. But more Silva, because Silva's seen so many different styles that if you really look at what Diaz brings to the table, it's boxing with jiu-jitsu off his back. That being said, that's nothing that Anderson Silva hasn't seen before at the highest level. So there's nothing that he can really shock Anderson Silva with. And if you look at it the other way around, Anderson Silva has everything he needs to shock Diaz.
And I'm sure for you, Anderson, another inspirational story coming back from his injury and now fighting once again on the biggest stage possible. Faber or Sun Tzu, who's your pick?
I actually like a Sun Tzu in this one.
Yes, I love it.
I do. I like a Sun Tzu in this rematch, and I'll tell you why. Sun Tzu has made changes in his game. This goes back to people evolving. You look at what a Sun Tzu has done to get on this streak. He's made legitimate, strong working changes to his fight game. He's hard to take down. He doesn't accept the takedowns the way he would earlier in his career in the WEC. In the past, he would get taken down, close his guard, go for a guillotine, and then end up the rest of the round on his back, possibly getting choked, which is how he got choked by Faber in scrambles. I think Sun Tzu pleads a different case in this fight because he's not going to be okay with the takedown this time, I think. I think he's going to use the jiu-jitsu to get back standing, and if he creates a stand-up fight with Faber, anybody who creates a stand-up fight with Faber doesn't allow Faber to get into any kind of grappling situations with him, they usually beat Faber. I think Sun Tzu's striking is awkward enough, strong enough, and useful enough that he's able to go in there, keep the fight striking for 3 rounds, and possibly come out with a decision.
Wow. And finally, of course, Dillashaw Barao, your pick?
I got to go with Dillashaw again. Okay. I like Barao, but I think after watching his last fight, watching Dillashaw's confidence, his mind is at a different place. I think that Barao having that loss, I think it definitely shook him. I think getting this last win really put some wind underneath his sails, gave him a lot of confidence, made him know that he is as good as he always was in his mind. But really, it comes down to Dillashaw, who went out there and beat him. A beating that he took from Dillashaw like that isn't easy to get your mind past. I mean, he got knocked out and beat down for 4 rounds before that, plain and simple. That's not easy to accept. So I think this is a big hurdle for Hennon. But I will say, Hennon goes through there and beats a guy like Dillashaw after what he's gone through. he's going to be one of the hardest guys in the world to beat after a fight like this if he can beat Dillashaw. The confidence will be through the roof, and I think he'll be able to stay around for a while, maybe even face me when I come back.
And you got next, right?
I still say, I sure hope so, man. I'm here looking positive, man. People are saying, what's this guy going to do? How's he going to do it? I'm saying, why can't I? I can't wait to get back there, you know? And in the meantime, I'm going to make the best of my life. I'm going to enjoy fighting. I'm going to enjoy commentating with you and the rest of the guys. And I promise you, I'm going to keep getting better. I'm going to be in the gym. Don't think I'm not in the gym.
One of the best stories of 2014, your comeback against Mizugaki, that amazing performance in Las Vegas. I can't wait for your comeback fight, this time for the belt. Whenever that time comes, I will be there, and I will be very proud of you, my friend. Good luck with the recovery. Happy to hear the surgery was a success, and tremendous stuff as always. Your analysis is always on point. Really great having you break down the fights for us.
Thanks for having me, Ariel, and thanks to everybody for the support and the love. I appreciate everything from everybody and the patience on waiting for me. I'll be back. I won't disappoint. Thanks a lot, Ariel.
All the best, Dominic. There he is, Dominick Cruz,
Cheers.
The former UFC bantamweight champion. Very much looking forward to his return. I have no doubt he came back from 2 injuries. I have no doubt he will be back soon enough, coming back from a 3rd ACL surgery. And hopefully when he comes back, he does get a shot at his belt, the one he had to relinquish.